Hey everybody, welcome back. We are on episode 5 today of Someone Fix This. Merry Christmas to all you filthy animals out there.
Merry Christmas.
It is the 28th?
Yes.
So a couple days after Christmas, but
Yeah.
this is a Christmas episode for us. So before we jump into this, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
What's your favorite Christmas movie now that the holidays are kind of over and you watched a bunch of them?
Man,
what is your top one?
I mean, wow, that's tough.
Yeah,
because if
there's
I'm
a bunch
only
of
picking
them.
one, because I'm like, there's like gonna be 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just gonna go number 1, at least on my list, is Home Alone, the first one.
The first one, not the second one.
No, the first one.
Why do you like the first one more than the second one?
The second one's good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was just because it was the first. It
Just
was
a
the first of classic
original.
This is what it looks like. Kevin, where you at, all that.
Kevin!
Yeah, so I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say for me it would be Home Alone 2. But
or Home Alone 2?
No, Home Alone 2 is my favorite of all time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But then It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh,
Is definitely in there.
That's in my top 5.
And I said it before, the lady Mary that is in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Merry Christmas, Mary.
Yeah.
That's my wife. That's my wife. So we're gonna dive into it. I'm gonna try to promise 25 minutes or less.
All right.
We're gonna
so
try.
Let's go.
We're only doing 3 questions that were asked, and I think these are going to be really good. So hitting with the first one is: are mega churches bad? Are they bad for Christians? Are they bad for church in general? And someone asking this, it's like, what is a mega church to begin with, right? Because there's people that go to churches that have 500 people or 600. To them, that's a mega church. Maybe they just came from a church that was like 20 people. There's churches that have 20 people, and people would go, oh, that doesn't count as a church compared to 500 people. And then of course you have the churches out there that are on YouTube, and there's a million people, 2 million, the lights and the people, and you see them on Instagram and stuff like that. And you hear more about them. They're definitely in the public eye a lot more.
Right.
Do you think mega churches are a good thing? Do you think you should follow them? Do you think you should be clinging to the words that they're saying? Do you think, we should be careful? What is your take on mega churches?
So I'll ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Would you consider the church, and you don't have to say which church, or you can, where you attend church. Mm-hmm. Would you consider your church, is that, and that I guess would have us ask another question. Mm-hmm. Is your church a mega church? Would you consider it a mega church?
Yeah. So I go to 514 in New Albany, Ohio, and to me, no.
How many people?
I'm guessing 500 or 600.
So do you have guessing. 1 or 2 services?
We have 2 services.
2 services.
9 and 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Very big building, or larger building, I should say, compared to a lot of churches. Beautiful. And I would not consider it a mega church. I would consider it a mini mega church. They have the lights, they have the music, it's loud, and it's an experience, if you will, not to that extent.
Right.
And you're still able to know the people. You're able to meet the pastor. You're able to have I played pickleball with them.
Right.
Super awesome guy. So to me, no. And you go to More Life Church, which is a new one, which actually is similar. Guys have how many people?
We would. Well, what's funny is that people that would call, and this is like this at any church, people that if they were met on the street, because the average person goes to church if somebody that goes to church and attends, quote unquote, regularly, what that really means is about every 6-7 weeks is when they go. Mm-hmm. So if you were to go out on the street in Newark, Ohio, Licking County, and to say, where do you attend church? There would be 1,000 people that would call More Life Church their home. But at the end of the day, and that's like many churches, they would call that home if they were asked on the street, if they were interviewed. But on any given Sunday in our auditorium, not counting children, people serving, in our auditorium, we run about 500. Yeah. We have 2 services, so 250, 250. Yeah. So
which is a decent amount.
Yeah, that's a bigger church than normal, because the average church in America, I believe, I could be off on the numbers, The average church in America runs about, I think, 90 to 110.
Like 100's pretty good.
So
like
100
if you have
people
100
going
people
to a church,
consistently,
and I've
that's
went
normal.
to churches like that. I mean, and it's awesome. So I think the term mega church is more like, our really big churches, are they good or bad, or do we need them? And, for me, the answer would be, being involved in smaller churches and bigger churches, they both have pros and cons.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm going to say right out of the gate. Being a pastor, when you have a church, there's always people that come, and I'm going to say this as nice as I can, that challenge you.
Yeah.
There are people that come to your church that challenge you, and they're challenging people, right? So when you have a church of 100, you'll have 2 of those people. When you have 200, you have 4, right? When you have 600, it just...
When you have 100,000.
Put it this way. When you have a big church,
yeah,
you just have a lot of people that can challenge you. That can be weird, or that can be off the wall, whatever.
Right.
So, but to answer the question, are they good or bad? I don't think they can be good or bad. All churches have things that are good about them and bad about them. It's about the heart of the people that are in the church. And what I can tell you this is that small churches are great when it comes to care. Not that big churches cannot be.
Right.
But when you take a church that has 1,000 people that call it their church, or 25,000 or 2,500, you really have to be strategic in the church and making sure that you have care teams and you have this and you have that. Also, being a bigger church allows you to have more finances typically to be able to serve people that need financial help, whether it's an outreach team, whether it's missions, whether it's giving. You're able to do bigger because you are bigger. Does that make you better? No, I want to make sure that that's clear. And just your challenges are times 10 when you have a big church.
Yeah.
But our big church is bad, mega church is bad. You're always going to get both sides of the story, because you're going to have a person that went to a mega church that was used to a small church. They're going to walk in the mega church, not always, but they can walk in. They don't get involved. They don't get connected. They don't see the pastor. They don't know the pastor. They haven't met the pastor. And therefore, they leave somewhat frustrated and going,
and bummed out.
Big churches
really,
are bad.
Like, that's stupid. Yeah.
Right. And they miss the point of church. The point of church is not knowing the pastor and what his favorite fruit or favorite meal is. That's not the point of church. And so you'll get people that do that are from small churches. So their skewed view at times can be mega churches are bad because I don't know anybody. They're just too big. And, it's not like my little small church. And that's okay too. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a church that has 100 people. The only thing that I would address to that is that if God wants people to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have 100 people in your church.
You're right.
And it stays at 100. I personally have a problem with that. If it's us 4 and no more, then we're missing the point that we're trying to, the shirt that's out there, make heaven crowded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you want to make heaven crowded. Well, you also want to teach them. You want to help them. You want to disciple them. You want to mentor them. Well, they need to go to a church. So if you're leading people to Christ, then shouldn't they go to your church? So stuck at 100 maybe isn't the best thing either. And neither is, say, having 10,000 people become a challenge. You have to be very intentional as a pastor to be able to feed people, to help them. You have to be intentional with care teams, with all of those things, connect groups or groups where people meet in their homes and stuff like that. So you have to be very intentional. My answer is mega churches, are they bad? I don't think so.
And when there are over 100,000 people, whoever that go, I don't know how many people volunteer at the mega churches.
Right.
A lot.
Right.
And you're going to hear more about the bad,
Oh, it's going to come out.
It's going to come out. And it's almost like people like that.
Oh, yeah.
They like that.
Yeah.
They like,
they
like,
want
I
to see
told
people
you,
succeed. They want to see them fail.
They want to see that fail. It's a very odd, strange thing. And then there'll be people that go to a church, maybe that's 200 or 300 people, and they're like, I'm just glad that's not my church. That was that big church. Because see, I told you. See, having a big church. If you knew the shenanigans that are going on in your little church, it just so happens that the bigger church can get
absolutely, and I've
crapped on
seen
because
it over the
and
years.
then the other thing is I think that the pastors don't have, because it's so big, total control of who's coming in and who's helping, and you're hoping that the thousands of helpers you're going, I hope all of you are, in the right area. So then, maybe there's a singer or whatever that did something, and you're like, see, I told you that church crap. And you're going, the church isn't crap. That person.
Pastors can't control another individual.
Control that, but
whether there's 100 people in your congregation or there's 10,000 people in your congregation, a pastor, a single pastor, can't control an individual any more than Christ controls any one of us that are watching when we don't want to be controlled, and listen to the Holy Spirit.
Would you say that mega churches kind of make it into like a big scene?
Oh, yeah,
where it's
sure.
like they do it almost a concert-y.
Oh, it can be a show.
People don't like
when
that.
You see the stage and you see the lights and you see the smoke, and you see the glitz and the glamour, and it becomes a production.
Yeah, a production.
Because they're online, and I believe that we should do everything with excellence. So whether it's a production or not, I get it. If you're going to put something on the air for people to view and to listen to, listen, your audio ought to be spot on. Your video ought to be spot on. Why? Because we should do everything unto the Lord, as unto the Lord, and do it with excellence. So, do you need the flashy lights? Maybe, maybe not, but that doesn't matter to me. If that's what draws people, did Jesus need to heal people? Because when you hear about why people were following him, he hadn't saved anybody yet. So let's get this clear.
Right.
He hadn't died. There was no salvation. It was Jesus and his show of let's get people healed.
He's
and
crazy
people
stuff.
went to see what was he going to do next.
The hype
It was
there.
this. Hey, I've heard of this man from Nazareth. I've heard of this man called Jesus. Oh, I've heard of him. You'll hear that in the Bible. We heard of you. We've heard of your miracles.
That's why we came here.
That's why we came. So
we wanted to see what was going on.
Was Jesus drawing people by doing some of these things? Yes.
Right.
He was healing people, and that's why they went. So I'm not saying that, having flashy lights, is that a sin? No. Show me in the Bible where flashy lights in themselves are a sin. Where the guitar, where the speakers, where this and that. None of those things in essence are a sin. A lot of times, flashy stuff like that, people who God has saved, they'll remember in their former unsaved life of going to concerts, and so they associate that with a concert, so therefore it's bad.
And they're like,
no. What you did at your concert when you were smoking dope and drunk, when you got there, that was the problem, not the smoke and the lights. It was, so you're associating this emotion and feeling with this flashy stage, and this reminds me of a concert, and when I used to be a sinner, and so therefore it's bad. Not true. It's what you were doing and where your heart was. And it's always the condition of the heart.
Okay.
So
I'm
saying yes. I think big churches are good. Small churches are good. Let's just reach people for Christ.
Right. Okay. So that'll bring us to our second question, which is Christian music bad now, or is it okay to listen to? Which is definitely a fair question. So I remember when I was, I don't know the exact age, but the Jesus Freak album.
Oh yeah,
the DC Talk. Dude, this is gonna date me.
Best album ever.
So when I was growing up, Christian music was lame.
It wasn't. I mean, except for DC Talk.
Except for DC Talk. Others. So as I started to grow up, there was a shift.
Right.
And DC Talk, and I would say like the Newsboys, and things were kind of changing. And what's interesting, I like with God, he's always doing something new.
Right.
Something's always changing. He's like a
cloud. God is doing a new thing.
If you haven't heard these talk, go listen to these talk.
Yeah,
they're so good.
Sick.
But they came out with an album. I think it's called Jesus Freak. I'm not 100%.
I think it is.
The whole album, all of the songs are. It's
best ever.
I love like we love music.
Yeah.
It's out of control.
Music is life.
Music is life. But the DC Talk album, whether you're a Christian, whether you're whatever, that's one of my top albums of all times. But anyways, that it was very, very risky, I guess is what I say.
Sure.
The song Jesus Freak came out. It was called Jesus Freak.
Right.
And it's got rock in it. in the beginning, a lot of
Is it
people
some rap
make
maybe
it.
even?
There's a little rap, and it
Yeah.
has similar chords to "Smells Like Teen Spirit," which a lot of people don't
Yes.
know. That's a Nirvana song,
Yeah.
and it kind of riffs into that. So
What?
naturally, when that came out,
Yeah.
that was either people
Oh
were
man.
like condemning it,
Preachers and churches. Yeah.
saying this is the worst thing ever,
It's
and
of
then
the
you had
devil.
and you had other people saying
Yeah.
like this is the best thing ever, like it's got me
Right.
amped for God. So music nowadays, this is another thing that's interesting with Christian music, is it's gone from like pop songs to worship.
Right.
Worship
Right.
songs are cool again.
Right.
That people like those. You know, there's
Well, yeah.
people like Brandon Lake that are out there in Maverick City and Elevation and Hillsong, yada yada yada. All the songs on the charts, really for the most part, are worship songs,
Yeah.
and they're very catchy. And people associate that with, well, is that okay to listen to? I see people jumping up and down and raising their hands, and they're getting out of control. And there's people that I know that go, I just like the calm. I like the hymns, right?
Right. Right. And that's
don't,
fine.
Don't be getting out of control like that, What is your is Christian music
you're
taking a wrong turn?
You know, you're 100% right. I think in the 60s and 70s, the days of like Larry Norman, you know, a lot of acoustic stuff, Kumbaya, really seeking God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Keith Green, you know, those things. Really good music, 60s and 70s. And then I think in the 80s, it was good Christian music. And I think in the 80s and 90s, just my opinion, I feel like that the artist tried to fit in and be like
secular music,
just
more,
like secular music,
yeah.
right? And now we've seen this shift, and you're right, we've seen a shift, and now with Christian music, it is absolute worship music. It's not. I wonder if that's about God. It's straight up about God.
Yeah.
It is praise.
There is no
worship.
confusion.
And we'll close this one out so we can be done with music because it's really simple.
Mm-hmm.
It really goes with this. If it's about the heart of what's being sung, you know, David's music, David's psalms, they would be music. Just because you like hymns and that's your thing, don't confuse hymns with music.
Mm-hmm.
See, because that's your thing.
Yeah.
Like hymns is the only way to go, because I'll just say this simply. If you go to another country, they're not going to do music the way we do music. Mm-hmm. People in Mexico are going to sound different. It's going to be different. It's going to be a different style. If you go to Africa, in many different areas, it's going to sound different. It's going to be different. You go to Italy, you go to Europe, they're going to do things different than we do in America. Mm-hmm. And we tend to think that if it's not Just As I Am or Amazing Grace and it's done this way, then that's blasphemy. It's wrong.
Yeah.
We're wrong. It's because that's your opinion. That's what you were brought up on. That's what you think is right. And it's really the condition of the heart in the song. Where does it take you? And if it's, you know, you fleshing out, but if it causes you to want to actually worship God mm-hmm. and praise God, that's another subject, but they're two different things. Praise is not worship and worship is not praise. They're two different things. Mm-hmm. One, you're singing about God, and the other one, you're singing to God. Two different things. But yeah, Christian music, it's changed for the better.
Let me ask you one more thing then.
Yeah.
And then we'll close, I promise. There's people that I know, and I've had conversations with it, and I get flustered or frustrated because I really like Brandon Lake. I like Elevation. I like that type of music. It makes me feel closer to God when I sing those songs and I praise them. And there's people that I know that aren't into that, and they're just like, and you know, their comments would be, I'm not into like that music. They're just not into it, you know.
Right.
It goes back to the hymn stuff. Would you say that, like for me, it's always like, man, I just feel like they're missing out. You know, I talk about like, oh, God's doing a new thing, and in my mind, I'm like, and I think He's doing something with Brandon Lake. I think He's doing something with. He obviously has His hand over those people, and they're doing these amazing things. And it'd be such a bummer to miss out on those. And you think when we get to heaven,
you want them to experience,
what
you're experiencing.
Yes, I think when we get to heaven, I'm like, you're not gonna just stand there and sing a hymn and just be like,
oh, it's gonna be loud, and it's
probably gonna be oddly loud,
hand raising and worship, and people falling and.
So what would you say to someone that's like, I'm not into that? Would you say you're missing out, or would you say, oh well?
I wouldn't try to convince them, because then if we're not careful, then our belief system and our passion, like yours and mine,
Yeah.
then I'm trying to drag them into the same way they would try to drag me into
Like a hymn or something.
and to say,
yeah.
no,
I'm
you're
like,
wrong
no.
with hymns. There's no discussion. Hey, whatever rocks your boat, man, do it. I'm with you. I mean, I do the whole worship thing with the Brandon Lake and many of the other people, Chandler Moore, and regardless, it's just worship to me. So yeah, just whatever it is that draws you closer to God, that's the key.
Okay, that's
Draw
good.
closer.
So
and
last one is this will be interesting. Are there false prophets currently that you should not be listening to, besides maybe the pastor that you listen to, the church that you go to? A really popular ones right now are Stephen Furtick, T.D. Jakes, Carl Lentz. There's, well, not Carl Lentz anymore, but
right.
Joel Osteen's a really popular one.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. And if you get on
Prince, what's his name? Oh shoot. Anyway,
yes, yeah,
anyway,
he's very popular. And if you get on YouTube and you watch these guys, and you immediately go to the comments, if you're like me, and it's just either a rush of this is the greatest speaker in the world, or somebody's like, I've seen people, they said, I'm going to create a video after this one and naming everything that they did wrong. Do not, the Bible warned us about false prophets and stuff like that. So what's your take on that? Do you think that those guys are false prophets, or what's your take? And I want to give my take on it.
So I'm going to ask you a kind of a question too. It isn't kind of, it is a question. Do you think it's okay, and then I'll answer that other question, do you think it's okay to listen to other people other than your own pastor?
Yeah, so I actually had a conversation with somebody. Yeah. So this was maybe a month or two ago, and I said, after Sunday, on Monday morning, I always listen to a specific speaker on Monday morning. I love hearing him talk. He's amazing, and to me anyways.
Right.
And I said, why don't, do you guys do that? Who else do you listen to? I asked them, and they said, if I do that, my judgment gets too clouded because I need to make my own, assumptions and decisions. Okay. And when I have it coming in from whomever, T.D. Jakes and Stephen Furtick, blah, blah, and I'm the opposite, because in my mind, I was thinking, I can make my own mind up. I just like to hear other people's perspectives,
or view on the scripture, or whatever,
and
story.
And you got somebody that has just like this pastor has 1 million views, and I'm thinking, who's this guy? So I want to click on him because I want to know what he has to say. Obviously, he's reached a lot of audience, and I want to know, what his opinion is on things besides just my pastor. So I would say I like listening to other people.
Okay. Yeah, so that's fair, because I personally think people should too, to learn and to grow. Mm-hmm. But the question is, are there, like a Stephen Furtick, T.D. Jakes, so on and so forth? Are there? I'm not saying they're prophets, because they're really pastors, teachers, but the Bible says there are false prophets, there are false teachers. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful and to be able to walk in the Spirit, to be able to know the difference.
To discern that.
Right. Yeah. But to jump on a bandwagon because somebody has a bunch of followers, or because somebody like a Furtick does things in an emotional way, or dresses a certain way, or has so many followers, or maybe his verbiage is a little different than what you're used to with, maybe somebody who's more reserved as a pastor or a priest,
or wears like a suit and tie.
A suit and tie. Mm-hmm. Well, we have to be careful, because if it's of the devil, then it's not going. It's this simple. If it's of the devil, it won't draw us closer to God, period. Because Satan will always try to draw us and have us drift further away from the Word and from God. And we'll know in our spirit. He said, my sheep, they hear my voice, they know it. See, because if you don't know it, then maybe you're not a sheep. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a
right. It's a whole nother conversation. Don't be confused. Also, like I said, be careful of your style, your opinion of, I don't like what he wears. I don't like his influx and his tone. I don't like his voice. I don't like his delivery. Because so many times, delivery, tone, what they wear, how they do things is so different than what you like. you end up saying, I believe they're a false prophet. And until you can prove it in the word that what they've said that is incorrect, a lot of times I know, and I'm going to keep saying, Stephen Furtick, he'll do jokes and he'll just do something that's a joke. It's a joke. And people will get they'll get their panties in a bunch and they'll get fired up and say, he's just bad. He's a bad person. And I would say, take the context of everything that he's saying. And if it isn't drawing you closer to God, then don't listen to him. But here's what I would say, ending this conversation. Those of you that are calling someone a false prophet, calling someone a false teacher, you better make sure you're 100% right. Be careful what you say. Because if by chance you are wrong, I'm not saying you are. That's why I don't say it. I'm just going to research. I'm going to do my thing. I'm not going to call somebody out unless it's in our church. I know it's specific. You better be careful, because the Bible's very clear about you saying things about somebody who is called of God. That's not a good place to be.
Right.
So be very careful that you're not the one that's on your iPad, that's on your computer going, this guy's a false prophet, he's crap, he's this. Be careful before you jump in to that kind of mess. You better know by the Spirit of God.
And I think that with people like that, Stephen Furtick and stuff,
right?
I don't agree with everything. Like you're always going to disagree with certain things. There's certain things that whomever, TDJ, Stephen, I bring up Stephen Furtick because I am a fan of his, where I'm like, that's ridiculous, something. I'm like, oh, come on, man, but it doesn't stop me from knowing that he is a good speaker.
Correct.
He has good things to say, and it kind of reminds me of Carl Lentz. For people who don't know, he was a Hillsong pastor, and the documentary came out on Hulu, which I think your mom watched.
And I watched it. Yeah,
we watched it.
It was good.
I remember I was talking to people about it, and naturally they're just crack. I told you, Carl Lentz as well, and it's crazy to think it just kind of adding on to yours is at one point in time, Carl Lentz was called.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
By God, and it made me go. I watched the documentary and I said, I'm going to watch a sermon of his. I pulled it up on YouTube. I'd never watched anything. I don't know the guy. And I pulled up the message, and it was years ago, prior to his allegations and things that happened to him, which you can look up yourself there. And the sermon was amazing. I got my notes on. I was just like, wow. He was so amazing and fluent, and he was saying things, and he was telling stories that I had heard 100 times, but making it like I heard it the first time. I was just so moved and writing those things down. So to count somebody out or just immediately say, Carl Lentz is just the worst person. Well, he was called, and it reminds me of David and what's his name, King Saul. And you're going, everyone craps on King Saul, and you're going, hey, he was God's guy for a little while.
Absolutely.
You can't take away some of the things that he said because they were from God, not him. And I think that's what people do is they see something that T.D. Jakes says or Stephen Furtick, maybe like a short YouTube clip, and they're like, oh, see, and they never even
just want to attack people.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? That we just want to see people, not succeed, or we want to see people called out and stoned.
And it's like Christians almost like it, and they're like, I knew that guy's bad.
And it's look, man,
dude,
back off.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
What happened to praying for people? What happened to lifting people up? And of course the low-hanging fruit is David. He was a murderer, an adulteress, murderer. That's a low-hanging fruit. There's so many other people in the Bible that we could call out. And I'm not saying it's okay, but what I'm saying is that God is in the restoration business. So whether it's Carl Lentz or whomever, we as believers are to be in the restoration business, not to take furniture that's old and just pitch it, throw it away because it's useless. No, God takes furniture that's old and he makes it new. It's one of the things with Christians we're the worst at. When somebody doesn't know God, we're so accepting.
Yeah.
Aren't we? We're like, look, man, you just come to church with me. You come to church with me. I know you smoke. I know you drink. I know you're running around. You're living with your girlfriend. I know you're doing dope. I know you're doing this. You might even have robbed a bank, but it's okay with me. You just need to come to Jesus.
Get in here. Yeah.
And then once they come to church and then they give their life to Christ, everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
That person messes up,
And now
and I was the guy that invited him. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
They know better than that.
I should have known.
What's wrong with them? I
Yeah.
should have known.
Yeah.
It's so wrong, man. Is that we love sinners and then we don't love what Christ said. They would know that we were Christ followers by how we loved
one another,
each
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Not the sinners, how we loved other believers, man. We need to start praying for people rather than condemning them.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that ends it, right?
That ends it right
so
there.
I don't know what that time was, the timestamp on there, but those are your questions. I hope we answered them pretty well, and we hope to see you guys again. Thank you so much.